Hello there. Welcome to this Quirkos live session. Today we're going to be doing some of the more advanced features in Quirkos. So we're going to skip over the kind of basics of bringing in your sources, doing some coding, working with the quirks, which make up your coding framework. And we're going to look at some of the ways that you can explore your coded data and then work with those to find new insights and new things from your project. So the first thing we're going to look at today is the groupings. Now, as you can see here, in the example project that I have, that you can actually download straight from our website. If you go to our website and then Learn Quirkos, Manuals and Materials, you'll see Workshop and Example Materials. And there are these two example project files which has the raw data, but also the fully coded data here, which you can download. So you can kind of explore and play with Quirkos if you don't have some data to play with yourself, or any other qualitative analysis software package for that matter. This one's a real research project that we did on the referendum for Scottish independence back in 2014. So it's a little old now, but still interesting because it's real interviews on a kind of complex political topic. So my coding framework here, I've got some very basic groups. So for example, I have this bubble here for media. I've created subcategories for bias in the media. So the BBC, social media, newspapers, radio, and TV. And then the televised TV debates has their own subcategory there. So I can create those kind of subcategories by, if I pull one of these out, just dragging and dropping the bubbles onto a parent bubble. And now you see that BBC has become a nested category. So that's the basic way to create a hierarchical grouping of your codes in Quirkos. So exactly for situations like this where you want to keep things on a certain topic coded together, you can do that with the dragging and dropping bubbles onto each other. But what if you need kind of more complex groupings? What if you're trying to show something that goes across nested codes? So I'm going to show you another example here. So I've created a category here for parties, the political parties who people were talking about in this particular example. And I have subcategories below that for the different names of the political parties. So it's the Green Party, UK Independence Party, Lib Dems, SNP, etc. But what I've also done is I've got this other category here for politicians, so individual politicians. So people talking about particular people from political parties. Now, I could have organized those so that an individual politician was in a category below their party. That was getting a bit complicated, so I pulled it out because I wanted to kind of show the power of the individual politicians themselves. But how would I create a link? How would I say that one of these individuals is connected to one of these political parties? Well, I could do that with the levels functionality in the current version of Quirkos. That's a different way to create groups which can go across different categories and hierarchical categories. What it means is that while this theme here, Alex Salmond, so this is an individual politician for the SNP party. Now, while he can only belong to one grouping, one hierarchical grouping, he can belong to many levels. So if I need to do a kind of one-to-many or many-to-one relation between my codes, I can do that with the levels. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a new theme, a new level, which I can do by right-clicking on any of the themes I'm interested in. But we'll choose Alex Salmond, and I'll right-click on that, and I'll choose the Quirk Properties bubble here. So I've got a couple here as well, which is just called test. So I can manage the levels of this button here, and I can actually delete these levels. I don't need these in the project. So the level number is 1 because it's the first one that I've created here. And we're going to call this SNP, so that's for the Scottish National Party. So we've created a level, or kind of a sub-hierarchical grouping called level for the SNP. And what we'll do is we'll create another one, number 2 for Labour. Save there. And then we'll click close there. So now we've created these two levels. And you'll see with these toggles that any one quirk can belong to any number of levels. So Alex Salmond can be something to do with the SNP party, but also Labour Party if he changed parties at some stage. So that's the beauty of the levels, that one quirk can belong to more than one level. So you can have much more complex groupings than you can with the pure hierarchical relationships. So if we click save on that, so Alex Salmon now belongs to the SNP, but Nicola Sturgeon also belongs to the SNP. So if we bring up her bubble here, choose the quirk properties. Oh, I've clicked on the wrong one. Okay, so for choose individuals, Nicola Sturgeon, right click, quirk properties, and I can make her belong to the SNP. Save. We go back into my individuals. There's Ed Miliband. He belongs to the Labour Party in the UK. So we've created some groups there, but now we can create a connection between the parties and the individuals. So we can connect the SNP party bubble. So this is where people are talking about the party in general, to our kind of wider SNP theme. We'll do the same for Labour. And now we've created quirks that belong. So this SNP now, we can talk about the SNP parties, but also the individuals from the SNP, and they are linked together in a category that can go across any number of themes as well. And now what we can do with that is, using the query view here, we click on that, we can choose from here, by default it's the properties, so the source properties you have here, but we can change the source title as well. But let's use a quirk level. We've got the SNP there. If we choose run query, there we go. We're getting results back now from the SNP, from Alex Salmon and Nicola Sturgeon. So all of those group things which we said were about the SNP and none of the other things. So now we can read through those things together in one view, and we can see what connections there are, what the associate promotions there are for these. I'm going to show you something else though you can do with the query view here. You can also do side-by-side comparisons. So if you remember, we also created a level for Labour, which had individuals and the party data as well. And we can do a side-by-side comparison. So now you'll see on the left, we have the SNP ones. If we sort it by the right query, we've got all the Labour ones. So here's the things people are saying about Labour. So this side-by-side comparison is a really useful way to do some kind of more detailed exploration of the data. So let's change to using the levels here. Go to the source properties. Now, these are things like demographic characteristics or any other information we have kind of on the source level. So any information that describes the sources. And here we've got gender, the occupation, and how they voted in the referendum. So what we can do here is we can do a side-by-side comparison of the women on the left and the men on the right in the project. And we can see, okay, so the men are saying more negative comments than the women. So that may or may not be relevant, but we can look into that and see whether that's something we want to explore. If we click on that, we can actually read the quotes. So there's 138 quotes from men, which are negative, and 94 from the women on the right. But if we wanted to look at something like the Scottish National Party, we can do that. And then we can see if there's a difference in how the people from different genders describe their opinions of the Scottish National Party. But the query view here is actually very powerful. It allows you to do a lot more than that. So maybe we wanted to do a much more nuanced investigation. So we can add an extra line here to the query. So we're looking at properties where gender equals female, and we can change this to or if we want to include a wider search. So gender equals female and people who voted no in the referendum. So let's run a different query on the right here. So female and voted no. In fact, let's have men who voted no. Okay, right. So now what we have here is the men who voted no on the right, talking about Alex Salmon, and the women who voted no on the left. So now we've got a much more refined group. So we're just looking at a very specific subset of our data. But because we can still do this subcategory, we can look and see if there's a difference between the men who voted no and the women that voted no. Or we can change it to people who voted yes, so that we can compare how women, just the women spoke about voting left or no. You'll see we're getting very specific. So we didn't have very many women in the sample who voted yes. So we don't have any results there. So that's an interesting thing to pick up on itself. But with these queries, you can add more and more different lines like this, get to much more powerful insights into the data. You can do that for any of the demographic information you have. You can also do it for any of the other properties which are in the wider format. So if you've got people doing many people working on a project, so we've got 2 people who did the coding in the project, so it's Daniel and Simon. So we can compare actually who did the most work here. We can also see what work was done between date range. Got the, excuse me, the levels here we can look at, and also the source title. So we can actually here look for, see just the results from particular people. So if we run this, let's take away the side-by-side comparison by clicking the panel button here. We can run and see just the results from one person. So here's everything that Ida said in the project. We can see everything that Helen said in the project. And again, with the side-by-side comparisons, you can compare one person's results with another. So put source title Ida. Let's compare what Helen said to what Adrian said and see, oh, that's interesting. Helen has a lot more to say about the Labour Party than Adrian. And we can look at those things and export them. So think of the various different ways that once you've coded the data, describe the sources, that you can go through and do some comparisons to see what's interesting. Maybe you know Helen had particular outspoken issues, so you want to compare it to someone else who was outspoken, but with a slightly different twist. And also you can create groups here as well. So you can have maybe Helen and Ida have something in common that we want to look at. We can combine their results together. And there's also a bunch of options here, so you don't have to have equal. You can have not equal to, lesser than, more than, exactly equal to, more than. And that's very useful if you're doing things like dates or age ranges. So if you had an age in here, you could say people who are more than or less than any particular age range. So what I want to show you is now some of the ways that you can kind of export the quotes. Now, you've probably seen the full reports. You've probably seen the word export, which you can generate, which has all of your data in. But what if you just want to get particular quotes? Well, basically, anywhere in Quirkos where you can see a quote, a little highlighted section that you've created, you can also export those quotes. So here I've got, let's change this again to property female. Let's just have one panel open, actually. It's a little clearer that way. So we'll run the query. Now we've got just the results from the women. But what if we wanted to say what all the women were saying about the rest of the UK? Okay, we read that through. That's interesting. I want to quote that. We've got these buttons here, which will allow you to copy those quotes and paste them in something else like Word or Excel or wherever you're doing your writing up. So this button here, the first one, is to select all of them. So if we wanted all of the comments we've selected here, which are about women talking about the rest of the UK, we just click on the all button there and they're all selected. And with this button here, once we're happy with our selection, we click the copy paste parts. And then in Word, I can do just paste, that's Control V. And you can see here that those quotes have been imported. Here's the quote, here's the quotes. And underneath it, it's got a little tide which shows you which source that came from. So we know that that source, this quote came from Ida's source, some come from Helen and June. So we can identify where those quotes came from. But what if you only want specific ones of one of those? What we can do here is we can also, you'll see if we press the all button again, we'll unselect all of those sources. You can see none of them are selected now. We can also select the quotes individually with this one button, which just selects single quote. So click here. So maybe I just want actually these three, but not that one. Now I can press the copy button again. And in Word, it's only going to give me those 3 quotes that I wanted. So you can be very specific about how you want to do that. And of course, you can use the select all to select all of them and deselect ones that you don't want in there. So it's a very powerful tool for getting just the quotes that you want with the named context in there. So that's how you would do this in the query view, but you can actually do this anywhere where you see the results. So for example, in the text search, if we put in, maybe we want to get quotes from every time the word, what would be a good one? TV. No, let's put radio. Every time radio appears. Now, when we get those quotes results, it's going through all the sources to find them. Here we go. You'll see we've got these selections here as well. So we can select all of the different quotes, every time the word radio comes up, select all of those, copy them. And then if we start Word again, we'll see here, every time the word quotes with the context of every time the word radio appeared. And this search can be much more powerful as well, because you can refine your data to stuff you've already coded or people from a particular background. So if you want to see just, let's choose the women again, every time the women who were interviewed for the project spoke about the radio, you can do that. Find the results. Okay, so we have much fewer now. Select all. And then we can copy and paste them with this button here into Word again. So it's a very powerful way of doing this. And you can also get results just from a particular thing. So you'll see every time someone said the radio about the S&P, I don't know if there are any results about that. One. Okay, so there's one person talking about a radio interview about the S&P. So again, these other criteria, it's worth getting the hang of them because they can really allow you to drill down into the data in very interesting ways. So that's the drilling down, that's the copy and pasting. The other place that you can do this is with the overlap view. So you've probably looked at this as well. The overlap view shows you when you have situations like this here, where we have multiple codes on one piece of text. So this piece of text is about many things. If you look in the bottom left of the screen, you'll see, as we go over that, it's about the last general election, the S&P, and when we first heard of the referendum. And Quirkos tracks those for you and can visualize those connections. So why don't we do that for the S&P? So we right-click on the S&P bubble, show the overlap view. And what this is showing us is like a Venn diagram, where basically these bubbles which are in the center are the ones which correlate most with quotes about the S&P. So we've coded sections of text about these together. So you'll see the thing that correlates most with the S&P is positive. So at this time, the S&P were a very popular political party. The people we interviewed had very positive things to say about them. There's quite a few negative things as well. There's 25 negative. If you see, hover over and see there's 42, it shows overlapping codes for positive. So if we actually want to see all of those instances where people said something positive about the S&P, so that's pieces of text which have been coded to S&P and positive, we can do that just by clicking on the bubble for positive. So these are all the quotes, and again, we can select them all here, we can copy them, and we can put them into Word wherever we like, or we can just select individual ones. So if you read through this and you're like, oh, that's really interesting, you can select that one. That's not so interesting. That one's really interesting. That one's really interesting. And then you can copy just the ones which are of interest to you as you go through and read it. And you can do this for any of the bubbles. So this is a very powerful tool. You can also do it for looking at all of the things. So if we wanted to see every time people mention, we've coded something about charisma, this is all our results for charisma. We just double click on the bubble to see that. Again, we've got those same views. So anywhere you get results of quotes, you can copy and paste and put that directly into what you're writing up. So when you come to write up, it's so quick and so easy to get those quotes referenced in there. Great. That's what we're going to do with the quotes. So we've shown the grouping, we've shown the query views, we've done the quotes. Now, the next thing I'm going to show you is the shortcut keys. So this is a little quick fun thing. When you're going through and you're coding reading through all your data. If you've got a situation like this where you've got lots of different bubbles, well, what we can do is, you just go through and you drag and drop onto the bubbles. It's great. But when you've got one piece of text you're coding with lots of things, so I may want to code this being about charisma. It's a discussion we're having. It's also someone saying kind of positive, they're getting involved about something. It can be quite tedious when the same piece of text you want to code to lots of different bubbles. Now, Quirkos keeps that text highlighted so you can do that, so you can keep dragging and dropping on other things. But there is a quicker way to do it, especially for codes that you use a lot. So for here, we've got these positive and negative bubbles. And I'm basically doing some kind of sentiment analysis on top of this. It's very manual sentiment analysis because I want to be quite nuanced about when people are being sarcastic and things like that. So I've done this manually. But what I can do is actually assign a shortcut key on the keyboard, which means that whenever I press that key, the text that I have highlighted will get coded straight to that bubble. So let's set that up. And to do that, we click on the settings button here. We choose general project preferences. And underneath that, there's the Quirk coding shortcut keys. So we'll choose the shortcut keys there. And this comes up with a list of all the keys on your keyboard. And you can see, oh, I've already done this, but let's go back and do it again. So I wanted the key N to be assigned to negative. So there's key N, the button N. So I could assign that to newspapers, Nicola Sturgeon, or anything. It doesn't have to begin with N. I could put N to 2015 election if I wanted to. But let's keep that as negative. That makes sense. And you'll see I've also got set up keyboard shortcut keys. So this helped me when I was doing it, make it a lot faster. Referendum for S for SNP, P for positive, and N for negative. So let's just remember we've got P for positive and N for negative there. So if we click OK, now I can select a piece of text like this and watch this negative bubble here. I'm just going to press a key on my keyboard and pop. It's been added to the negative category. So now, sorry, I pressed P instead. I'm sorry. It went into the positive one. So I'm going to click on undo. I pressed the wrong button. And I'm going to put that into the right place. So if I select that, press the N button. Right, now it's gone into the negative category. And you can see there, got that little negative stripe. So this makes it a lot quicker as we go through because I can just click N, P, S. See the numbers adding up there. We've got new things added to those categories. So for the ones you use all the time, it can be very quick. And of course, you can still code to things that you're not using as often just by using the drag and drop onto the Quirks in the same way. Now, the other thing I'll show you now is when you're getting to a stage like this where you've got quite a lot of themes. I can't remember, I think there's about 80 or 100 bubbles in this project. I don't remember, I could look in the report. It can be a little bit difficult, especially if you've got lots of subcategories and subcategories like this, which are a little bit painful to work through. Well, this view button here is your friend. And it shows you lots of different ways that you can change the way that you look at your quirks. So by default, we've basically got them put where we like on the canvas. That's one of the things I find really useful, is to kind of physically place these somewhere on the screen so I can kind of start putting things close together. And I've got a good kind of geographic memory of where they are. But if we've got a lot of them, we can put them in alphabetical order, for example. So we've got A, B, C, D, etc. So now we've got nice alphabetical order of our quirks. So they're in a nice, neat grid. We can do that for when they were last created. So we have the newest ones here at the beginning. And we've also got by size. So we can have descending order of size. We can see that negative is the biggest one there. And these views all update live. So when you update things, if we put something else onto business, it's going to pop ahead of importance there. But the other view that we have here, okay, so sorry. So if you want to get back to the main view, just choose the default no auto arrange at any stage. And now it's in the messy place where we put it. And the other thing though, is this tree view here. And this gives you an expanded tree view that you can scroll left and right to see. And it's much more similar to the kind of hierarchical nested view that you'll see in other qualitative software packages. But it's very useful when you've got lots of subcategories like this because they're all pulled out. And this works in exactly the same way as the bubbles. So you just drag and drop text on them. We can still use the shortcut keys here. And you can also right click on any of these bubbles and get any of the same views. So we've got the properties here if we want to change the color. We've got the overlap views we can see. So it basically works, the tree view works in exactly the same way as the bubbles, but allows you to see a lot more at one time and gives you a different kind of ordered way to look through it. So that can be very useful too. And of course, you can always untick the Quirkos tree view and go back to your bubble category. It will be just there where you want it. Now, the other option you have here with the view is for the number of codings. So here we actually have them turned on, but if you don't want to be kind of biased by seeing the actual number, because it's kind of quantifying qualitative data in a way, if you don't want to see the number, you can turn off the number of codings on it. It gives you a slightly cleaner view. You still get a rough indicative size, the size of the bubbles correlate to the number of pieces of coding you have in them, but they don't show the actual literal number. But you can turn that on at any stage, and obviously you can see that in any of your reports. So those are the main things that I wanted to go through today. I can see there are a couple of viewers here. If you have any questions, if there's anything you would like to see, please let me know. Do either you can talk to me in the chat, you can send me comments in the chat there, or drop me an email if there's anything you'd like me to cover. But otherwise, that's the basics of what I was going to go through in this session today. If at any stage you have any questions, please get in touch. Please drop us an email. You can contact us on Twitter or through Skype. We're here to help with whatever you get stuck with, or if you have questions or advice, want some advice on how to structure a particular project that you're working on, just let us know. We're always here to help. If you have any suggestions for the software, things you'd like to see improved, we're always very willing to hear those as well. And if you haven't done so already, don't forget that you can go onto our website. It's www.quirkos.com. You can download a completely unrestricted 1-month free trial. And that trial is exactly the same as the full version of Quirkos. So everything you can do in the full version, you can do in the trial. And it doesn't mess with the project as well. So if you've created a project using the trial and then you like it and want to go on and use the full project, there's no problem at all. It's very easy to do that. So the very last thing that I'll show you is a new feature and a slightly wider thing which is happening. And this is the qualitative data exchange format. So a group of software developers have been working, so these are all the major people really, on a common exchange format for qualitative data projects like this one. So it will eventually allow you to move your project from NVivo to Atlas TI to Quirkos to Transana to any of the packages which are supporting it. It's quite a lot of them. So I'll show you very quickly how to do that in Quirkos. At the moment there, all you can do is export and exchange the bubbles. So basically your coding framework. And you can bring this now into Atlas TI, into NVivo, into F4 Analyzer. And you do that by just clicking on the project button and then choosing Export QDC Codebook. And then what that will do is pop up with a dialog, ask you to give it a name. So I'll call this Referendum Codebook. The codebook is a list of all of the codes, so these themes, colors and the relationships between them. So you can send them to someone else and say, hey, here's how I've analyzed this data. Why don't you try and analyze it yourself, even if they're using a different software packages. So if we click save, we've now created that file. And you can also import as well. So if we click new or existing, and then choose open other, and then in this option here, we're going to choose QDC files. Now, when we've done that, it will show us any QDC files we have at the moment. We've got some here we've taken from NVivo, from Atlas TI, from QDA Miner. Here's the referendum codebook we had. So we'll bring that in. It says you're about to import it. So it's good. Click Save As. It asks you for a project name because basically this allows you to go get on. So referendum book project. What this has done is it has imported all of the bubbles that we had, relationships between them. The position doesn't always get saved because different software doesn't support positioning like this. But you'll see we've got all the code works here. There's no sources in here yet, so it's not supported currently, but will be by the end of the year, by next year. And it allows you to have a lot more interactivity with people working on other software. And we're really excited that other software packages have already started supporting this. So it's a really great project. We're very proud to be part of it, and really think it's going to make life a lot easier for qualitative researchers. Right, so that's everything for today. I don't have any requests here to show you anything, so thanks for coming on today. Do get in touch if you have any questions. Download the trial, look at our videos on YouTube if there's a little thing you want to see, and hope to see you in a couple of months for the next broadcast. Thanks for dropping in.